What's up, guys? Today we're going to be talking about Hogwarts Legacy. Okay, well, let's get this out of the way first. Yes, this is a love letter to Harry Potter fans. Loads of Easter eggs and connections, characters and hints that will come in the movies and books and stuff that you'll see later. Seeing the Hogwarts castle and the surrounding grounds give new life to a story and world that so many have loved for so long. And it's awesome. This is the game that Potter fans have been waiting for, and honestly, this is the kind of game that fans of all franchises would hope for. A game in the world where you get to take part in something you love, but not just recreate the same story, but experience something new in that world, all its own. Unfortunately, that seems to be either very difficult or extremely risky to do, because it happens so seldom. I truly hope that the success of Hogwarts Legacy leads studios, developers, publishers, and anyone else involved in making video games to look at the path that they've used to make this game, and then use that framework for making games for other franchises. All of that said and out of the way, the truth is, I love this game, but I hope to explain to you why, even if you are not a Harry Potter fan, you should give this a go. Because even if you stripped it of the world that people already know and love, if you removed it from its connection to Harry Potter, Hogwarts Legacy would still be an absolutely fantastic video game. Let me tell you why. Okay, look, the story is pretty good. It probably isn't the best story you'll play all year, but it's far from the worst. Depending on how you feel about playing a teenager in a school setting, it may hit a little harder or a little softer. But the truth is, they really don't focus on the school stuff too hard, so if you don't like that, I wouldn't worry too much. The classes just kind of serve as like a story behind the character learning new spells and stuff like that. Also, you do come in as like a fifth year, which is equivalent to a junior in high school in America. So, I mean, really, your character's like 17 anyway, so you're not that young. Speaking of your character, though, there's a pretty good amount of customization you get here. The character creator is made up of predetermined choices. So it's not like sliders where you get to change every detail. Rather, it's like, 50 hair types with 30 different color choices, and you can kind of change them around, right? But there's a good amount of those options, and so it doesn't feel cheap or too limiting. The gear also plays a pretty big role in customizing your character, and you will find tons and tons of it. Now, what's really cool, though, is all of the stuff you find can be used in your look. Now, what do I mean by that? Okay, so this transmog system is probably the best I found in any game. So here's how it works. Any and every new piece of gear you find, whether it's glasses, a mask, a coat, a robe, clothes underneath, your gloves, hats, whatever, once you've found it, it can then be used freely in the transmog system. So while you're going through the game, you will earn all kinds of stuff, just finding it in chests and whatever. But you can also earn them by completing challenges or specific quests. And those ones are these like special appearance items. So those you don't wear, they don't give you armor boosts, but they can just be worn as the transmog piece. And those tend to be a little more unique, or maybe even like part of a specific set, that kind of thing. But so whatever you wear as your armor, so you get the armor that has the highest numbers, but then you can place over it anything that you've ever gotten. You don't even have to put it on. If you've acquired the piece, then you can use it as a transmog. You can change out. You can have whatever hat you've ever owned that you're wearing, no matter what you are currently wearing. Every robe can be, can pull the hood up, which is super easy. So, like, for example, I'm kind of boring, but I found, like, this night set that was, like, all black, and I took one of the, like, very early robes that's mostly black, pulled that hood up, and, then I wore that, frankly, like the whole game once I found it. So, but like my son, on the other hand, like he kept changing it. He wore a mask for a while, like this metal mask that covered his whole face, and then he changed it and he wore like these steampunk glasses and a cool jacket. I mean, you can change it often. You can buy new stuff. You acquire it like so much. It's almost like a Diablo or a looter shooter style. Like, you get a ton of gear, but again, you can sell it, you can do stuff with it, and all of it, again, even if you don't wear it, you don't even have to put it on once. It just getting it makes it a option to wear as part of your look, which is really cool, and I really hope more games take that, because I think that is probably the coolest way to do it. Now, apart from your look, you can change your character's voice. It's kind of like two options, like a male and a female, but you can change the pitch, right? Making it a higher pitch voice or a lower pitch. It's not a huge change, but you can tell the difference. So this isn't like a fully immersive sim or anything, but you do get to pick your responses to parts of the narrative. Usually it's still going to kind of lead to the same outcome, or at least a similar one. It's just like whether your character is going to be, a little bit harsh and sassy, or a little more straight-laced and kind. I mean, it's not a huge difference, but it does give you a little bit of choice there. You also get to pick how you lay out your spells, what items and potions you use, if any. You get upgrade points, which can be used for things like new spell slots, upgrading spells you already have, upgrading potions and plant capabilities, upgrading stealth, stuff like that. All of that works together to feel like a pretty solid RPG experience. So, let's talk about the story. You essentially are this person who somehow is able to see and sense an ancient magic that most don't even know exists. And there's a bad guy that can kind of see and use it too. So you basically just gotta take him out before he uses it to kill everyone. I mean, that's kind of the story in a nutshell. Of course, there's more to it and some twists and turns along the way, but that's the essence of it. The game starts off really pretty strong. It throws you right into the thick of it with a pretty cool cutscene. Things get moving, and then you kind of end up on this, island or whatever, and right away it's feeding you mechanics and gameplay, one thing at a time, though, in story, and so it really feels pretty natural and has a really good pace to it. As you move through that first set piece, you just kind of learn all the basics. There's more you'll find out as you go, but I mean, it really gets you going. I found it to be pretty brilliant, actually. A really good tutorial, and I think it was somewhat similar to, like, when you're reading a book, and a good writer who will kind of show the narrative instead of just having a character vomit it onto a page in like an endless dissertation. It's not like that at all. It makes the world more intriguing and the story more enticing, because you already feel like you're taking part and learning what's going on and how to do it. Because of that, and the way you start off, it feels like you're being swept up into something, and I loved that feeling. I did, however, find that, at least in the main narrative, that the feeling of being swept up, that the narrative carrying you, it did kind of wane as the story progressed. It's not that the story was bad or anything, it's just that the strength of the narrative wasn't always quite as strong as the opening. I don't necessarily think that that's bad. I mean, in an open world, you want to feel like it's okay to do all of this side stuff. And, all this stuff that the game puts in front of you, you want to feel like you can do that and not like you're ruining something, right? I mean, most open world games are like this. Skyrim, Fallout, whatever. There is the main narrative and the main story, but you don't feel like it's immediate. And this, for the most part, felt that way as well. The main narrative itself is still good. I just wouldn't say it's top tier. I would have loved if they would have spent a little more time going even more in depth into some of the stories that led, not just your character, but the ancient magic itself. Like, where did that come from? How do we know about it? What is your character? What's their involvement? All that kind of thing. But in all fairness, I didn't dig into all the side content, so it is possible that they did more depth there. I did quite a bit of it, though, and never saw any, so I kind of doubt it. That said, I do think it's saying something that I do actually want to know more of this story in the world. The fact that I'm interested enough to even ask is probably a pretty good notch for them. I would say it's good enough, but I would guess that it won't be the story that brings you back time and again. However, I will say that dialogue in this game is, on the whole, pretty darn spot on. There's absolutely some cheesy lines and some questionable conversations some barely passable voice acting. But overall, it actually is pretty respectable. Characters have a purpose, they have personality, they have good acting for the most part. I really do think that they did a pretty good job on that. I do remember at least one of the characters that you have more conversation with feeling maybe a little stiff at times, but the others were actually really good. And so I do feel like the dialogue had a good sense of emotion behind it. So while it is true that I don't think the narrative itself is top notch, I do think that the way they delivered it and a lot of the side stuff actually is pretty top tier. Now, where they did stumble in the little areas of the main story, the character stories, as I was talking about, they excelled. No matter which house you end up being a part of, there are a few friends that you will meet along the way. The depth of these characters is superb. They show skills, they're telling backstories and developing that relationship between your character and these comrades or whatever. The characters are really believable, their stories are fairly impactful, and you really want to engage with them. It's important to note that there isn't any romantic elements in Hogwarts. There's no dating sim stuff. So, maybe don't come thinking you'll get a high school rom-com, because that ain't happening. But just to serve as an example in the litany of spells you can acquire throughout your playthrough, there is a whole section of them that you cannot access. You simply do not get them unless you go through one of these social quest lines. You'll see them in the spell log, but you just don't have access. You'll see an upgrade tree that makes them more powerful. And frankly, you can even sink points into that, but it won't bear any fruit unless you follow the quest line through and get access to those spells. These spells are not needed to beat the game. I know, because I was kind of in a rush to beat the main story, because I have kids in my house, and I didn't want them going and spoiling anything for me, so I rushed to the main story, did not complete the social quest lines until after I beat it, and so a whole repertoire of attack spells and upgrades that was completely optional that I didn't have until after I beat the game. But if you want them, you can go get them. I actually kind of love that. I think it's awesome that that's an option, and I like that they're not necessary. They're just a part if you want. I think that is an important aspect of any open world game, so I think that was a really good choice on the developer's part. Now, talking about spells leads me into what was by far the most surprising and exciting piece of this whole game for me, and that's the combat. I had incredibly low expectations for the combat of Hogwarts, as the books and films of Harry Potter do not exactly fill you with ideas of potential amazing fighting capabilities. But what Avalanche Studios produced here was an engaging, entertaining, and frankly just super fun experience. Now, I play on normal difficulty, and that's how I play most games, okay? Mostly, combat wasn't stressful, but it certainly pushed back far more than I expected. Some of the combat had these really strong puzzle-solving mechanics that they don't even tell you up front, but like a great story, they give subtle hints and then expect you to figure it out. Now, I'm not saying it's Dark Souls level, okay? Don't get that twisted. It ain't Dark Souls combat. It's not that the fighting is intrinsically hard, but rather that it is multifaceted, forcing you to not only know the combat mechanics, but also to use your brain to figure out how to solve the combat puzzle presented by any specific encounter. Pushing through the main story like I did, by the end, I was actually pretty decently underleveled, and the combat was actually pretty challenging. The last 3 encounters in particular actually took me a few tries each to get it right. That gave a real level of satisfaction because I didn't just simply mash the trigger faster, but I did time the right spells at the right enemies at the right times. I learned the mechanics of the boss, exploited it when the opportunity presented itself. I dodged, parried, used the environment to my advantage, made good combos, used my specials on the right enemies, so that when I did take out the enemies and the little ding sounds for when the battle is over, there was a level of satisfaction in the encounter. Part of this, yes, comes from the fact that it was harder because I was underleveled. But the other part comes because of the customization options of how you set up your spells and what you put your upgrade points into, whether you use your potions or plants or not. Because when I did lose a fight, I often would feel like, oh, maybe if I moved this spell over here and mapped these buttons instead of over here, it would be easier, or I could do better. So there was a level of fulfillment in just fine-tuning where your spells were located and the plan of attack that you would go for. And that was actually really rewarding. I really did enjoy that quite a bit. As I mentioned it before, but this was so surprising to me. I did not expect the combat to be good, let alone my favorite part of the game. I will say though, for the first few hours of the game, it won't feel that way. Okay, it takes a little bit of time, and you have to start unlocking spells before the combat opens up. So I do highly recommend that you prioritize the quest to unlock spells, so that as you're able to upgrade and do all those kind of things, that you could pick more, the spells. I highly also recommend that you get your upgrades that open more spell slots, so you have more options, and that will make combat just feel way more natural. It will pick up way faster. Outside of combat, there's a lot to do in this game. Puzzles are everywhere, and a lot of them are not super challenging, right? Some of them might stump you pretty hard at first. A lot of them, once you figure out what to do, you can run around and nail them one after the other. Most of the puzzles I found, I was able to answer fairly quickly. There are a few that took me a little bit. There's these doors that are a little bit of a math problem, but once you know the sequence, they're super easy. The good news is that once you figured out each of these puzzles, the rest will come super easy. If nothing else, you can always just try using every spell you have on things that glow after you use Revelio and just see what happens. Some of the puzzles and dungeons can actually be super challenging, but there are guides, so don't be afraid to look it up if you need help, or if you leave a comment down below, I'll try to help you out. There's math puzzles in Hogwarts that require, or statues that require you to hit them with specific spells. Merlin trials, which, may require any number of things. Along with puzzles, though, there are flying challenges, which are super fun. Flying is, one of the best parts of this game. As soon as you can get that, trust me, it's awesome. I love flying in this game. There's Summoner's Court, which has you using Accio to draw balls towards you, and you try to stop them in a spot with higher points. There's collectibles everywhere, and if anything, that might be something to complain about. There were so many collectibles. They were everywhere. So if you're a collectible person, that's gonna tide you over for a long time. It got a little bit tedious for me, so I got a chunk, but not all of them. When you're running around, you're gonna want to use Revelio all the time, because there's stuff everywhere, and you just always need to be using it. There's also these things called demiguise statues. You can only get those at night, which is really cool. There's these constellation alignment puzzles. On and on it goes. There's just so many. So if you like having this kind of wide array of stuff to do in open world games, Hogwarts Legacy has you covered. Okay, a real quick note on performance. I played on a PS5, and it was flawless. I saw no frame drops, no pop-in. All the shaders and textures look good. I had a little bug here or there, but other than that, nothing really. It ran pretty good. Unfortunately, though, the PC port, as is the story more often than not these days, has some real trouble. Frame rate drops are a huge issue, and stuttering may plague you as well. There are some newer videos saying that there are things you can do to fix the issue, but my understanding is that as a whole, the patches they've pushed out have not fully taken care of the problem. So if you're a PC gamer, be aware of that. I know that you have to put up with a lot if you are a PC gamer. Lately, this stuff has been real garbage. I've recently been playing way more games on my PC, so I get it. But just be on the lookout for that, okay? Now, because of that PC port trouble, if you are waiting for the PS4 or the Xbox One, or heaven help you, the Switch, then you might want to wait for reviews to make sure you don't spend full price on a broken game. If you watch these later, and that's an option, look up another review by someone who did it on one of those systems. They will come out. If I'm able to, I'll get one out, but I don't know that that's going to happen. So just make sure you check it before you buy those ones, because they might just be awful. All of this combines to make a really outstanding game. Regardless of a previous love for Harry Potter or not, if you grew up reading the books or not, or watching the movies or not, or maybe you even found them as an adult, but whatever the case, if you do love and know the world, then man, let me tell you, this game is a treat. There are so many Easter eggs and connections, hints towards events that will happen later that you know about, but the characters don't know. Exploring Hogwarts is amazing. Running around Hogsmeade is super cozy. It makes you want to sit down by the fire, drink a butterbeer, kick your feet up, all the good stuff. Very early on, you get to put the sorting hat on. It has a short questionnaire to kind of put you in a house. I mean, it's not much. It's not like the good quizzes or anything, but you can always pick which one you want anyway. I think what will speak to fans the most is actually not the Easter eggs or tie-ins or even the lore connections. It's not even the world building. It's the feeling of wonder when you travel through the world. When you go in a tent and it becomes a giant arena, or you go to a cave and watch the entrance kind of unfurl in front of you. The creators of this game truly understood the feeling of awe and wonderment, the fantastical and mysterious, of the mystical and supernatural. It is the amount of times that make your eyebrows raise up just in mundane transitions. The way the stairs appear as you walk up the grand staircase, or you get swallowed by a frog statue to come tumbling out of another. It all feels just enchanted and fascinating. It is this feeling above all else that genuinely makes the Harry Potter universe both nostalgic and yet new and exciting. This is a game for anyone who enjoys fantasy or good combat or open worlds. But if you loved the Harry Potter stories, then this game is something incredibly special. And there it is. I strongly recommend Hogwarts Legacy for pretty much anyone. If you enjoyed this video, do me a favor and hit that like button. It helps out a ton. And if you're new around here, make sure you subscribe down below. As always, thank you so much for watching. Have a good one.